Welcome to Season 5 of the Becoming Trauma-Informed podcast. I'm Dr. Lee, your host for the past 4 seasons, and I am delighted to announce the addition of a very special co-host, my husband and business partner, TLC.
To become trauma-informed is to understand how trauma occurs, why it happens, and how to respond in a way that leads to repair and reconnection instead of further pain and harm. One of the biggest causes and effects of trauma is history literally repeating itself. Whether it's toxic patterns passed from parent to child, repetitive wars, political discord, or simply the habits we keep participating in despite our best efforts, patterns are evident everywhere we look. One thing is clear. If our past painful experiences aren't discussed and processed, the harm doesn't just continue to affect us. It seeps into our relationships, our work, and perpetuates damage into our future.
On this season of the podcast, TLC and I will be discussing some of the most notable historical events in humanity and exploring what the past can teach us about the present, plus the potential impact on our future. We'll also be deep diving into popular trends and current events, exploring them from an intersectional and nuanced perspective. We'll focus less on finding the right answer and more on sparking curiosity and conversation. We're not going to sugarcoat it. The topics we broach will be activating, and the discussion will likely get passionate. We're leaving no stone unturned and publicly exploring the questions that most people dare not to even speak aloud. So if you're looking to learn more about trauma, to understand your own experiences deeper, or to dive into some slightly taboo conversations, we're excited you're here.
Let's get into it.
I'm going to be going through some of the lessons I've learned over the last 3 years because we just had our 3-year public launch of the Institute, our anniversary on Monday. And the Institute has been in existence for 3 years and 18 days. And we publicly announced it on September 16th of 2021. So it's been 3 years. So I'm going to be talking through some of the lessons I've learned in growing the Institute and running the Institute and having team come in and having a lot of people interact with us over those years. And one of the things that I've learned, like one of the biggest lessons, is capacity. Capacity's got to be a big piece of this. Integrity is a huge piece of this. So I'm done making promises that stretch beyond my capacity and then lead me to either disappoint people or disappoint myself or overwork myself. I get to model that for you and anyone who comes into the Institute, because how can we ask other people to do that if we're not doing that? How can we invite other people to do what we are not doing? So I think that's let's start there. I think has been the lesson for me the most is as within, so without. Carl Jung said that. He's one of the fathers of modern shadow work psychology, understanding neuroscience and the brain and how our bodies and minds work in relationship with each other and the world. And as within, so without is really as I am operating internally, that's what I'm going to create externally. As I put myself into external situations, in whether that's intentionally or not, that's going to shift how I show up and that's going to shift how I feel internally. So I have to be really conscious and intentional about what I want my internal space to feel like and what I then want to and where I want to go and how I want to show up externally out in the world to help support that. So that's been a really big lesson, is understanding, okay, what do I want my internal landscape to feel like? And I think that what has been so fascinating for me is that over the last 3 years, the amount of trauma work that I have had to do is exponentially higher than what I did before I started a trauma institute, because there were so many external things happening that caused me to go, like, come back to myself and go, if this is happening out here, what's happening in here? So that's been a big thing, is prioritizing, understanding how I want to feel and what I want to experience and how I want to operate in the external world, and making sure that my internal is supported enough to do that. And that is one of the other lessons that I learned, is setting boundaries in a way. I thought I got boundaries. In fact, one of the first things I ever taught at the Institute in our trauma-informed psychologically safe training program, which was the very first thing we ever offered. One of the very first things we teach in that program in the first couple of weeks is boundaries. And my understanding of boundaries has deepened and grown so much over the last 3 years. And interestingly, just in these last few months, I've chosen to go through a portal of growth around boundaries and becoming spiritually, financially, emotionally, mentally, physically, holistically mature when it comes to boundaries and really understanding like, what am I responsible for? Who am I responsible to? What have I committed to outside of myself? And what am I responsible for within myself? And then also the question of what am I not responsible for? And who am I not responsible to? And this is something that we're going to be doing a boundaries workshop at some point in the upcoming few months. And if y'all decide to join trips in March of 2025, you'll be able to learn it a lot more deeply there and practice setting boundaries there. And also, if you're a business owner and you decide to come into Healing Center Business School with us in the next little bit, then you'll get a good dose of how to set boundaries in an aligned and effective and regulated way in your business and with your family and with yourself and clients and all of those things. Boundaries has been a really big thing that's coming through. And what mature boundaries look like is just it's a adult level, fully mature, fully embodied level of understanding what is yours and what is not yours. And focusing on only controlling what is yours and not trying to control what is not yours. And I actually saw a really interesting TikTok yesterday that was talking about how most of us experience overwhelm and anxiety when our external awareness is bigger, like the sphere of our awareness is bigger than our sphere of internal influence or external influence. So, what that means is that if you are aware of all of these problems outside of yourself that are not within your control, you're going to feel really overwhelmed and really anxious, and you're going to feel really dysregulated. You're going to be really dysregulated versus if you are somebody who is like, you know what? Yeah, all of this stuff out here, politics, world health, all of this stuff. Like I keep focusing my awareness out there. And yet there's things in my community, there's things in my home, there's things within me that I actually have a sphere of influence over that I could change, but I'm so focused out here that I'm not noticing the things that I could be doing here. And when you decide to stop trying to control things that are outside of your sphere of influence and bring your awareness back to what's in front of me, what can I do with my hands? What can I do with my voice? What can I do with my feet? What can I do with my skills and my talents, my gifts? The level of power and the level of agency and the level of impact that you're going to be able to have and experience is way higher. So this has been something that I've been really focusing in on is like, I can't control if people respond negatively to a social media post that I put out. I can't control who the next president's going to be. I can't control all of these things. Like those are outside of my sphere of influence. And there are some things I can do. I can make sure that I'm putting out content in an aligned, intentional way that I really enjoy. I can make sure that I'm educating myself on local and state politics and voting and using my influence there. I can do some things in a very different way. And also from a business perspective, like this is something that I think massively changes how successful people's businesses are, is because if people are worried about things that they can't control and they're spending their energy trying to control things they can't control in their business, they are not taking the steps and making the moves inside of their business that are within their sphere of influence. And so then they're not able to actually have an impact in their business. So being really intentional around bringing yourself back to, okay, hold on a second. I've stepped outside my sphere of influence into this like outer sphere of awareness and I'm feeling some kind of way about this. What can I do here? What can I do differently? What can I shift? What's something that is within my control right now that can change? So there's that piece. One of the other really big lessons. And by the way, I would love for y'all in the comments to drop if there's a lesson you've learned being in a relationship with our institute. Like, I would so love to hear that. So, if you're listening to this on the podcast, there's a little button at the very top of the show notes. You can send us a text. We would love to get that. I would love to get that feedback from you because it's always really helpful to hear, not even necessarily what we've done, but what you've done, what you've taken control over, what's shifted for you, or how you've incorporated something that you've learned in here and shifted something for yourself or for others. Another big thing that I've learned is that this is something that's been coming up in a lot of my clients' language recently is a lot of our clients are talking about how they've been doing the small things. They're like, yeah, I'm just taking small steps, or there are these itty bitty things that I'm doing each day, or it may seem small, but this is a celebration that I have. And I've been, my clients will tell you in our paid containers, if I have a chance to coach you or mentor you or hold space for you, and you start like being mean to yourself, that is the one thing I don't tolerate. That is the one thing I will interrupt you. I will pause your reflection at times. And it's the one place that I am like, nope, stop. You don't get to be mean to yourself. And here's why is I can't, if I tolerate that, I'm teaching you that it's okay to tolerate it. We've got to cut that. Like we've really got to, anytime we notice that's happening, just stop it. Stop it. When my clients are like, oh, this is something small, I'm like, okay, hold on. I'm hearing you say that the action, you're judging the action as small, or you're judging this thing as just like itty bitty or not that big of a deal. And small things are often very big. Small things, small, consistent, or like almost imperceptible shifts are oftentimes have massive impact. And what's interesting is that when people say, oh, this is just a small thing, a lot of times they are shaking up their magic 8 ball and going, "It does this thing matter or not?" And the 8 ball's going like, "Yes, absolutely." You don't know that. There are small, tiny shifts that you might make that change the course of your life. And the flip side of sometimes the small things are like the biggest things of all. Sometimes the things that you're like, "This is such a big deal," they don't matter long term. Or they don't matter in the way you think they're going to matter. I say this as somebody who just not through the business, but through the business and also not through the business. I have had our bank account be negative thousands of dollars before. I've also received like a multi five figure and once a six-figure check in our bank account. And people will hear that and go like, "Oh my gosh, those are such big deals." The thing of it is that if you decide in the moment what the magnitude of something is, what you're doing is you're actually operating outside of your sphere of influence. You are pretending to know something that you don't actually know. Now, if you want to decide, if you are saying, I decide that this thing is smaller, I decide that this thing is big, that changes things. Because if you decide that a small move you are making matters, or if you decide that a big thing that feels really tough right now or really hard right now, that it isn't going to like shift how you are showing up in any sort of perceptible way. If you decide that, then that's the truth. If you decide that, then that's the impact that this thing is going to have. And so sometimes what has been so helpful for me is to understand that I don't know the magnitude. I do not know how what I am doing is going to impact what happens to me. I do not know for sure how what I am doing is going to impact the people around me. I don't have control over that. There's 8 billion people on this planet. So the only thing that I can do is ask myself, is this an aligned move to make for me in the now and in the future? And if the answer to that is yes, then it's a quote unquote good move. It's an aligned move. That's the only thing that I can accurately assess in that moment. So, what this looks like is that when something small happens and my brain starts to go, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, we did it one time, but it's just one time. Is that really going to make a difference? I don't know. So, the answer I say to myself is like, I don't know. And that's not where I want to focus in. What I'm asking myself is, does that feel like that was the aligned move to make? The answer is yes. Then cool. We're done evaluating. Do it, move on to the next choice. If my brain or my ego, my fear starts asking myself, like, oh my gosh, this really big thing just happened and I don't know how I'm going to handle this and I don't know, this is just the end of the world. Okay. Do I know that? No. There have been things in the last 3 years that if you had asked me before those 3 years, if this happens, what's going to be the impact of that? And I'll be like, oh my gosh, that would just change everything. And it would be so amazing. And then those things happened and it didn't change everything. And it was amazing for like a day. And then there were other things that if you'd asked if this happened, I would have been like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the end. I won't be able to survive that. It's going to be absolutely awful. And then they happened. And they sucked. They sucked. And also it was like, oh, that wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was. And it actually, long term, this is maybe a good move. This is actually something that's going to support me because of whatever reason. So small things can be big, big things can be small. You don't know. So the asking yourself, is this a small thing or is this a big thing? That's not a helpful question. The helpful question is, okay, this thing happened. What's the aligned thing I do in response to this? So that's another big lesson. What else? You can't do this alone. You cannot do this alone. One of the biggest mistakes I've made over the last 3 years, I will tell you, every single time I got into the weeds was when I decided that I needed to do this alone. When I didn't ask for help when I needed help, when I pretended everything was okay when it wasn't, when I stopped praying, when I stopped sharing with friends and family what was happening, when I just muscled down and decided that I didn't get to have any divine or human support whatsoever. So you can't do this alone. You can. I guess I should shift this. You can do this alone. Why? Right? Most people who come into this space who have tendencies or habits to isolate at particular times. So maybe you don't reach out to, or you don't post in here and ask for support or ask a question. Or maybe you don't join one of our programs that you think would actually really help you because, oh my gosh, it's in group format. And what if it doesn't work? And what if I embarrass myself? And what if I disappoint Lee? Which, by the way, you can't, but you can't disappoint me. I can be disappointed by something you do. You can't disappoint me. That's on me, not on you. And most of what people think will disappoint me isn't what disappoints me. So most of what we think will disappoint other people isn't what disappoints them. So you can do this alone. You can choose to not have support or to not ask for help or to not be in community or and to isolate yourself. And a lot of times we choose to do this subconsciously. We don't realize we're doing it. And then when it becomes conscious, we're like, oh, but I don't know how to change it, or I don't know that I even really want to because I've been hurt in the past. I've been friends with people and they've left. I've been in relationships with people and they've hurt me. I've asked for help as a child from my caregivers and they didn't provide it or they violated my boundaries. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of traumatic reasons for people to not want to be connected to other people. And y'all, those are all relational wounds. Every wound that leads us to respond by retreating into isolation is a relational wound. So you can't heal a relational wound in isolation. You can't heal a wound that happens in community in solitude. Now, what you can do is retreat into solitude and get clear and get regulated again, make sure you're safe. And you're going to have to find somewhere else a safer place where you can learn how to be in relationship and community with other people again, that where they're really going to provide that support for you and show you that it's safe for you to be connected before you go out and try to be in those kinds of relationships again. Sorry, I know it sucks. And I've had to learn this. I've had to learn what it looks like to ask for help before I get to the point that I am beyond helping. And something I say, and this is a really great thing in the comments, is I feel like I keep reaching out and getting hurt. Then maybe we're not reaching out in the right places. Maybe you've learned to unconsciously or subconsciously reach out to people who don't actually meet your needs. Maybe the people you're feeling drawn to reach out to are because your nervous system is like, oh, these people are familiar. They're familiar because they remind you of the people who hurt you in the first place. Maybe reach out to people that you're like, oh, this kind of feels boring to be in a relationship with them. Isn't that a good thing? Isn't it good for your nervous system to experience calm and peace and boredom and certainty in a relationship with people? And I want to just witness because there's some comments here around like the hard thing is when you try to find that relationship safely, but keep getting disappointed or reinforcing the wound. A lot of times, if something keeps happening over and over and over, we've got to look at how am I running this play? And this is something, y'all, I'm not talking to y'all in the comments. I'm talking to me right now. I'm talking about me right now. We got to look at how am I running this play? Because I'm going to use a football analogy. If I keep running this play and as a quarterback and I keep getting sacked, maybe I have to choose a different play. Maybe my offensive line is not protecting me. And so I need to have a conversation and be like, "Hey, I'm not running a play where the offensive line is required to protect me like this for this long because they're not doing it. So you got to give me some quick routes. You got to give me the ability to get out of that pocket so that I'm not getting sacked, aka tackled by 300-pound men over and over and over and over again and like expecting a different result." So look at the spaces you're joining. Look at the spaces you're hesitant to join. A lot of times people are hesitant to join spaces where they're like, I might actually get what I need here because your nervous system is like, but we've never experienced that before. So this feels a little scary or weird. I've seen that. I've joined all these other spaces and they didn't work. So why would this one work? Is this space different than the other spaces you've been in? Because if it is, then, right? If also you might need a more intimate space because if you're reaching out to people in a group of 4,800 people and there's 100 posts every day, or there's a lot going on and you're like, oh, this person's not responding. Are you close enough? Are you in an intimate relationship enough with them that they are like, you can expect me as part of the agreements we've made in this relationship to respond to you in a certain amount of time? You can expect me to be here with you. And if I don't show up in that way, we have an understanding that you're going to say to me, hey, you've said you're going to show up this way and you're not showing up this way. Can we talk about it? So sometimes what we do is we like hang out on the fringe of a community and then we're like, nobody's noticing me. Is it easy for them to see you? Are you close enough to them? And have you actually said, hey, I want to be in a closer relationship with you and had them say yes and experience that? Because if not, it's no wonder you keep getting disappointed. You're asking for attention in a group of thousands of people, and it's one person that's managing thousands of people. They're not going to be able to give you the kind of attention that you want. They're not going to be able to be in relationship with you in the way that you want to be in relationship with them. You're going to have to make a different choice. And that takes me to the second to last one I want to talk about, which is reciprocity and sufficiency. So, something that has been coming up a lot lately in that I've been really working through and that I'm noticing a lot of my clients and a lot of the people in the spaces I'm in working through. Big lesson I've learned is around sufficiency and reciprocity. And so, what I mean by this is that a lot of times we expect people to be able to meet our needs when they don't have what they need to meet our needs. And on the flip side, we expect and hold ourselves to these standards and say, I should be able to meet these people's needs, except I don't have sufficiency in my own life to be able to meet these people's needs. So, the way that reciprocity works the best in a relationship is that both people have their needs met. Both people clearly have defined their needs. They've agreed on how they are going to support each other in meeting their needs. They both take ownership of their needs and they both take ownership of the commitments that they're making to one another. And they make sure that they have resources. They make sure that they have what they need before they go offering to other people more stuff. And in Healing Center Business School and all of the business programs we do, this isn't just business, but I see this so much in business. I have worked now and been in like relationship now with I don't know the exact number. At some point, I should probably try to figure this out. I could try to figure this out. But it's several hundreds, if not into the thousands, of business owners at this point that I've been in a relationship with through the Institute and before. And what have noticed from a trauma perspective is this, and I've seen this in myself as well. It's something that I have actively worked on healing and still have. I will always have something to work on with it. It's not a process that's ever completed. And something that when I shifted it, changed everything. Business owners often start their businesses as a way to offer to other people the thing they never got. I know that one is an oofy one. Just like hear that again. This is also has to do with your jobs. Okay. If anyone's like, well, I'm not a business owner, I work a corporate job. Okay, cool. This applies to you too. People often go into work like they choose jobs, they choose professions, they choose work, they choose vocations. They start businesses that offer to people the very thing that they never got. And it's brilliant because if you have an experience of having this need neglected, if you have an experience of having this wound not met, then of course you're going, oh, I know that this is something that happens, and I want to make sure that nobody experiences what I've experienced before. I want to prevent people from experiencing the harm that I experienced. And so watch what happens next, okay? You haven't necessarily healed. You haven't necessarily recovered and released the past painful experiences that you have had about not having that need met or having that need violated. And before that work is done, before you are operating from a place of sufficiency where you have what you need, you go out into the world and you start working and giving people the very thing that you have not filled up on yet, that you do not have a sufficiency of yet. And so what I find happens is that about 3, 5, 10 years in, people start getting really burned out and really fatigued and jaded and resentful and confused because they're like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm doing the work that I love. I'm getting to help people in a way that I love to help them. I get so excited when I watch people experience something that I never got to experience. And I'm like, yeah. And where is that happening in your life? You are giving something that you have never filled up on. You are meeting a need for other people that has never been consistently met in you. And the misguided thought, and it's so well intentioned. It's such a well intentioned thought. We think if I give this to other people, finish the sentence. If I give this to other people, I will receive this in return. Of course, if I give the world what I never got, the world will give me back what I never got. Helping these people will fulfill me. Helping these people, they will be so grateful and I'm going to get paid for this and I'm going to have this experience. And so I'm going to receive. There's going to be a reciprocal nature to this. You're receiving gratitude. A lot of times you're receiving appreciation. You're receiving satisfaction at work well done. You're receiving money for what you are offering. And none of that hits the spot because it's not what you actually need. If you are giving everybody your attention, if you are giving everyone your care, if you are making sure that people feel seen and heard and validated, if you are helping people heal, if you are helping take care of other people on this planet, if you are making the world a better place and all of the attention is still focused external. And remember what we said, as within, so without. There's another way to hear that. As within, so without. Within, without. You're only going to be able to keep that up for so long. Business owners burn out. People quit their jobs and go back to school or go try something else or go shift to a different department or try this or try that. And they're like, oh, a raise will fix this. Or, oh, a job position shift will fix this. Or, oh, a title will fix this. Or, oh, getting to work with different people will fix this. Or, oh, me going to a different company will fix this. Or, oh, me starting my own business where I get to do this myself will fix this. No, it won't. It won't fix it because none of that is filling up the need, because what's not happening is you receiving sufficiency. You are not getting what you need first to then be able to give from a place of abundance. You're not able to give from a place of abundance and to be like, I already have enough of this. So when I offer this to you, there's not going to be any resentment or envy or frustration or jadedness because I'm not watching I'm not watching all of you get the very thing that I want more than anything in the world. This was the hardest lesson for me to learn because you would think that getting paid $30,000 in full to help a client would fill that need. You would think having people, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people start to follow us and be grateful and interact, and thousands of people pay us, and all of these things happening, and all these people being like, "Oh, I'm so glad the institute exists and I'm so grateful." And our team being like, "Oh, Lee, I love how you set this up." And our students being like, "Oh, I feel so taken care of." You would think that all of that would have scratched the itch for me, but it didn't. And what was terrifying for me was about 9.5 months ago and got diagnosed with an unknown autoimmune illness that was suspected lupus. And what was so fascinating is as I started doing all of this research into lupus and autoimmune diseases and their relationship to trauma, there's a lot of research that shows that autoimmune diseases, they are an attack of the self on the self. So what had happened was I had cut off this piece and part of myself that was like, you have a need, Lee. You need attention. You need somebody to hold space for you. You need somebody to validate your feelings and your emotions. You need to feel seen and heard and witnessed and held and supported. You need somebody to check on you. You need to not be in charge of a thing and receive care and love and healing and recovery. And it was just this smack in the face moment of, oh, shoot, I've given everybody else what I needed because I thought that would give me what I needed. And what a manipulative thing to do. And not an intentional. And by the way, manipulation is not a word in our space at the Institute that is a quote unquote bad word. To manipulate is not bad. Manipulate means to try to change things around. When I realized, I said, oh, this is a very manipulative thing that I'm doing. I'm trying to get the world to give me what I need while also pretending that I don't need it. And this is creating some really wonky dynamics. And also, it's making me very sick. So I had to make a lot of different decisions at that point. It was, I guess I didn't have to. The choice was you shift things now or this gets way worse. And then you're not going to have a business at all. You're not going to have any needs because you might not even be here. And that was so hard for me. This is one of the biggest lessons I've learned because what came from that when I went, you know what? I'm not making sure my needs are met. And so what I'm doing is I'm promising a bunch of things to people that I can't even necessarily deliver on. I'm isolating. I'm telling myself everything's fine when it's not. I'm continuing to offer space and validation and witnessing and doing all these things for people. And I'm like, my cup is bone dry. And I went, oh, this is because I did the very thing that I've known I did over here in my nursing career. I didn't realize that I was going to repeat it in my business. And by the way, I wasn't just repeating this in my business. I was repeating it with my children. I was repeating it with my parents. I was repeating it with other friends and family and people that I was connected with. I was repeating this with my husband. I was repeating this with a lot of people everywhere. So I went, I can't cut this piece or part of myself off anymore. I can't do this. And not, I can't, like from this place of it's impossible, from this place of in order to continue to live, in order to have what I want, in order to be here for my babies and have a long life with my spouse and be able to do the things that I want to do and have the life I want to live, this is not an option anymore. This has to change. And as I change that, remember when I said that some small things end up being really impactful and some big things end up being not so impactful? The big thing that happened was actually from a very simple, small decision. It was me going, okay, what are my boundaries? What is mine? What is not mine? What am I responsible for? What are all the things that I've said I'm going to be responsible to other people for that aren't actually within my capacity? And let me go clean that up. What are all of the things that I've said I'm going to be responsible to other people for that are in my capacity that I do want to prioritize? Let's put those up front and then set those over to the side and ask myself, What do I need in order to be able to do those things? What resources have to be in place? What sufficiency do I need in order to be able to do those things? And so notice what happens. I'm still running the business. I'm still prioritizing helping people feel seen and heard and validated. I'm still teaching and mentoring and coaching and supporting at the Institute. I'm still doing the very work I want to do, but I'm not starting with what do other people need in order for me to get my needs met? How can I manipulate everything outside of me to get what I need met within me? No, that's the wrong direction. That direction doesn't work. If it had worked, it would have worked by now. The direction I focus in on is okay, if these are the things that I really want to prioritize, what do I need in order to be able to do those things? What do I need energetically? What do I need mentally? What do I need physically? What do I need spiritually? What do I need financially? What do I need nutritionally? What do I need emotionally? What do I need relationally? What are my needs? And an interesting thing happened when I really got clear on those boundaries. What am I responsible for? And what am I responsible to other people for? And what do I not want to have responsibility for? Or what do I not claim responsibility for? What is outside of my sphere of influence? People left my life. Some people left my life that I thought would be there. And then I had told myself, if they leave, I'm not going to be okay. And you know what? It sucked. And I'm good because if I set clear boundaries and I say, hey, I'm no longer willing to be responsible for this because it's not mine. And somebody goes, I don't like that. I'm leaving. Okay. Did they ever really want my needs to be met in the first place? Did they ever really care about my needs? Did I care about theirs? And when people leave or when things shift and things change, a lot of times that happens. There's this space that a lot of clearing happens and you can go, oh my gosh, I'm making a mistake. And all of this big thing that happened, it's just leading to all of these other really big things. And I think I made a mistake and let me stop and I can't really, no, all of that needs to happen for then your needs to be met. Because if all of that is in the way, if all of that trash is in your cup, then it can't be filled with the nutrients, the nourishment, the water that you really need. So all that stuff has to get cleared away so that you can actually fill up with sufficiency and with abundance of the stuff that nourishes you. And as I started to do that, what I found is that there were also people who not only stayed in my life, they were like, thank you. Finally, I'm so grateful that you're actually letting me meet your needs. I'm so grateful that you're not taking responsibility for stuff that's not yours anymore. And you are taking responsibility for the stuff that is yours. Thank you. This makes it so much easier to be in relationship with you. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these really cool people in my life who love my boundaries. And I love their boundaries. And it makes it even our relationship is so easy because it's based in mutual benefit around our boundaries and our needs. And so when I make sure my needs are met and they make sure their needs are met, and then we come together, we have such a beautiful experience. So reciprocity requires sufficiency. Reciprocity requires sufficiency on both sides. A lot of times when people come into our space, what's so fascinating is they think they don't have anything to offer me and they expect that they need to meet my needs. And I'm like, no, yeah, maybe in the past that might have been something. I don't need you to meet my needs anymore. My needs are mine. And I'm not here to meet your needs. I'm here to support you in figuring out how you meet your needs. I'm here to support you in figuring out how your business meets your needs as you set it up. I'm here to support you in understanding all of the ways that your needs have been invalidated or neglected or violated over the course of your lifetime so that you can choose to make different decisions. That is my responsibility to you. My responsibility to you is not to meet your needs. That's not my job. That's yours. Notice how much cleaner that feels? I'm not manipulating you. I'm not manipulating you because I'm not taking responsibility for stuff that's not mine. And I am taking responsibility for stuff that is mine. And anytime you in relationship with me try to shift that responsibility around, what I'm going to do is come back to you and be like, hey, I'm seeing you that your need's not getting met. And I'm seeing that you want me to personally shift some things to meet that need. And I'm so happy to support you in a way that works for both of us. So let's figure that out. If we can't find a way that works for both of us, then maybe this relationship has to shift. And there's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're a bad person or I'm a bad person or we made mistakes or we can feel whatever we feel. We can feel disappointed. We can feel sad. We can feel all of those things. And we can still be in relationship. It can still occur. It can still exist. It just might need to shift what it looks like. So that takes me to the last piece here. Okay. Because this is directly tied to this. The last piece of the lesson that I've had to learn over and over and over, and it surprises me every time it comes around. Every time it comes up, I'm like, "What is this?" And I'm so blessed to have now people in my life who are like, "Lee, remember? You're at that point. You're at that point where you're like, "What the F is this?" That's part of the process of running a business, of growing, of shifting, of changing, of becoming more mature around your boundaries, of stopping manipulating people, of making sure your needs are met. This is all part of that process. It is that things get to look and feel so much better than you think is possible. I'm going to start crying. I have started crying. Things get to look so much better and feel so much better than you know is possible in your bones right now. And before they feel like that, oftentimes they feel way worse. You're like, this is BS. In that clearing process, when you have people that you thought were going to be there forever leave, that's not a moment that you're like, oh, this is working so well. Those moments where you're like, oh gosh, I made the same mistake again. I can't believe I did that. And you realize you're shaming yourself and you're like, okay, I made that mistake because that is my pattern. That's a habit that I've created and I see it and I'm committed to shifting it. So let's go clean it up. Let's go clean it up. Let's go clean it up. Let's go reestablish what we're responsible for and who we're responsible to. Clean it up, clear it up, make space, get the trash out of your cup. In those moments, it's going to feel like nothing is working. And this is all stupid and dumb. And you're annoyed and you're frustrated. And you're like, why on earth did I listen to that podcast with Dr. Lee where she was like, it gets to be so much better? You did it because you're committed to the process of clearing all this out and shifting things so that you can have sufficiency and you can experience reciprocity. There's a question in the comments around my take on reciprocity requiring sufficiency in the marriage realm. It's the same as every other relationship, honestly. It's just you have so much more intimacy and connection in that relationship as you do it than you do in other relationships. And so it just feels a lot gnarlier and there's a lot more emotion and a lot more nervous system dysregulation that can happen there because you're so close to one another. One of the books that I love, it's Boundaries. It's called Boundaries. It's by Dr. Henry Townsend. He talks about how marriage is a really tough one because marriage is where you are supposed to come together. A lot of religions say you become one, except boundaries are what delineate our separateness. What's mine, what's yours, what's ours. And so you are together as one while you are also two separate humans. And so that can get really confusing. That's why codependency is so common in parent-child relationships because, again, you came from your parents, and in intimate relationships because you are coming together and forming this new entity, this relationship, this oneness together, while also maintaining your separateness. That when I say that learning reciprocity requires sufficiency that didn't just happen in our business, that happened in TLC in my life. Part of the reason I'm in tears and I'm going to start crying again is like TLC in my relationship is better than it has ever been in the 20 plus years we have been together. And 2.5 years ago, I didn't even know if we were still going to be married. And that was us doing this and understanding like our needs, our individual needs have to be met. And we are responsible for those. And we have to stop putting the responsibility on each other for meeting our needs, particularly when neither of us has committed in any sort of way to meeting each other's needs. So, this is you and your relationship with your business. This is you and your relationship with your clients and your patients or your participants in your business. This is you and your friends. This is you and your team members. This is you and your children. This is you and your parents. This is you and whomever, strangers on the internet. the lesson that just brings me to tears is that it gets to look so much better than you think it can. And that requires you to stop thinking that the small things are small, that the small things are small and the big things are big. And instead going, what's the aligned move? What's the aligned move? What's the aligned move? What's the aligned move? In those moments that you're on the floor sobbing, maybe you're yelling at God or the universe for whatever's happening. Like you're going like, what is this? Or maybe you're journaling, or maybe you're just sitting there staring at the wall, just like talking to yourself, or your brain's ruminating. And you're just like, this sucks. This is so hard. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. How is this get better? You don't know. You are not a mind reader. You are not a fortune teller. You can't predict the future. The only way that it can get better is if you understand that it's one aligned move at a time. And some of those aligned moves are going to break your heart. Some of those aligned moves are going to break your heart. You're going to have to share things with people and say things to other people. Some of those aligned moves are going to make you want to puke. Some of those aligned moves are going to make your inner kiddo throw a temper tantrum because you're deciding that you're going to delay getting something that you want in name of getting something that you need. Some of those aligned moves are going to have you just in your feelings. And so you've got to be able to understand that your feelings are there to show you when things are important, and your feelings are there they're not things to be afraid of. They're not things to shove down or to project onto other people. They're there to show you what's important to you. So if you're really feeling this, if you're feeling really sad or really frustrated or really angry or really confused or really hopeless or really like overwhelmed, this matters to you. And so if it matters to you, you deserve to hold on to the vision that it can get better than you ever thought possible. And only if you continue to make aligned moves in the moment. That doesn't mean you're not going to make mistakes. Aligned moves often are mistakes. Can y'all hear me on this? Aligned moves are often mistakes. They don't work out the way you think they're going to. That's a mistake. A mistake is, oh, I thought this was going to go one way and it went a different way. Something can be in full alignment of this is what I think I need to do next. And then afterwards, you can be like, that didn't go the way that I thought I wanted it to. And learn from it and make another aligned move. There might be other ways through this. I think I've tried most of them. None of them worked. This is the only thing that has worked. I say all of this to say that at this point in my life, with my autoimmune illness undetectable and feeling pain free most days and getting to do work that I absolutely love and really having my needs met and operating, I would say about 90% of the time from a state of sufficiency, it's better than I ever imagined. And you get to have that. And I'm so excited to see what happens in the next 3 years. And I want to invite you along. I want to invite you into this space. If you are thinking about starting a business, or if you've started one and you're just listening to me talk and you're like, yep, and my business doesn't have sufficiency in it. I built it on first, I'll give everyone what they need and then I'll get what I need, instead of asking myself, what do I need in order to be able to serve people in the way that I want? If you did that, all good. That's how most people are taught to do business. That's how I was taught to do business. Come revamp your business with us. If you are listening to this and going, "Ugh, you know what? There's a lot of past painful experiences that I have outside of business, and I really want to focus in on understanding my trauma and understanding my nervous system and really like making sense of those things," then join us in Trauma Club for now. I'll make sure it's in the show notes for the podcast. And or get on the wait list for our trips program in March and spend 12 months with us really going through this and learning how to set boundaries for yourself and operate from a place of sufficiency. And or if you're like, I don't want to do any of that, okay, just invitation to go listen to the 120 plus episodes of the podcast, invitation to use your resources and continue to connect with us in a way that feels safe and supportive for you until if/when you are ready to go into one of these other spaces. The last thing I'll say is a lot of times people think that one of our spaces, like they think Healing Centered Business School would be a great move for them. And then they don't allow themselves to explore it with us because they're like, I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to take up their time. I don't want to hop on one of those 30-minute exploration calls that they offer that are like, we offer no pressure, no sales exploration calls for you to see if starting a business is something that you'd want to do. People are like, I don't want to hop on one of those calls because they expect to have to reciprocate something. And we already have our needs met. So we don't expect you to do something in return for hopping on a call with us. You deciding to spend your time for 30 minutes talking to us, that is the reciprocity. That is what we enjoy. We like talking to you. It's market research for us. It benefits us to hear from our audience what's going on with them and what they're thinking about. It's helpful for us to know what people who are interested in our program, like what are the barriers for them to joining? What are the things that are getting in the way? What are the hesitancies or the questions that they're having? That's helpful for us. We're already receiving from you just by you coming on the call and sharing with us what's going on. So we don't need you to do anything beyond that. So I'm going to drop the link for the Healing Centered Business exploration call. And if you're like, can we talk about trips in March? Send me a DM. Okay. And let's chat. Because we don't need you to do anything for us until we enter into relationship together. And even then, we have needs. It doesn't mean you're the one who needs to meet them in any specific way, unless it feels aligned and good for you. Here's to another 3 years. I want to end this by just saying thank you to all of you who have been with us from the beginning, those of you who have joined us along the way, those of you who have invested your time and money and energy and resources into our spaces. I cannot thank you enough. Those of you who have helped me grow as a business owner and as a human, thank you. I really appreciate everything that you've done. And I just feel really excited for how we get to continue to practice reciprocity through sufficiency moving forward in this space and in all of our spaces. So I love you all. Thank you. Till next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of our podcast. If you've enjoyed what you just heard and you'd like to dive deeper into trauma and recovery work, come check out Trauma Club, our private membership community. It costs less than a therapy session, feels a lot better than a night out distracting yourself, and is built to be enjoyable for extroverts and introverts alike. You can head to jointraumaclub.com to hop in today and use the code BTIFAN, that's BTI fan, to save 50% off your first month. And if you want to talk to TLC or me directly, we would be stoked to hear from you. You can send us a quick message by heading to the show notes and clicking the Send Us a Text Message button. See you next time.